Hello and welcome to a new episode of Tech Talk where we talk technology. This week, we'll be looking at ways to leverage emerging technologies for inclusive growth, together with Meshach Ishaya, the CEO and founder of Ashinity Synergy Limited. Or before we begin, as always, let's take a report on today's topic of discussion. My name is Dorcas Yakubu. Thank you so much for joining us. In a world marked by digital transformation and rapid innovation, the conversation around economic growth is evolving. It is no longer just about expansion and profit, but about inclusion, ensuring that everyone, regardless of geography, gender, age, or socioeconomic status, has access to the benefits of progress. At the heart of this mission lies emerging technologies with the potential to level the playing field and drive inclusive growth across sectors and societies. Now to the big question, what is inclusive growth? Inclusive growth refers to economic expansion that is equitable and accessible, creating opportunities for all layers of society and reducing inequalities. It emphasizes not just GDP growth, but also improvements in livelihoods, education, healthcare, and participation in the digital economy. Emerging technologies from artificial intelligence to blockchain and renewable energy offer unprecedented means to accelerate this transformation. While emerging technologies offer hope, they also bring challenges such as digital divide, job displacement, and data privacy. Emerging technologies have the power to do more than disrupt. They can uplift. When guided by inclusion, innovation becomes a force for equity, unlocking potential in overlooked communities and driving sustainable, people-centered growth. Welcome back. In case you're just joining in, the program is Tech Talk on Trust TV, and we now have Meshach Ishaya joining us virtually on the program for expert opinion. Good to have you on the program, Meshach.
Thank you so much, Dorcas. Thank you, Trust TV, for having me.
All right, the tech landscape is evolving quickly with innovations like AI and blockchain. And okay, so in your view, what are the key emerging technologies now shaping Africa's socio-economic development?
Wow, yeah. Thank you, Dorcas, for that question. So absolutely, Africa is buzzing with innovation. Artificial intelligence is, front and center, right? It's been applied in everything from healthcare, diagnostics to smart farming. In fact, AI is seen as a key driver for Africa's growth, with one analysis suggesting it will contribute as much as 1.5 trillion, that's about 6% of Africa's GDP by economic impact by 2030. Blockchain is another game changer. It's not just about cryptocurrencies, and all of those buzzwords out there. It's powering secure digital identity and transparent supply chains, which is huge for financial inclusion and trade as well. Yeah, we are seeing that impact already. Africa has become a leader in adopting blockchain solutions, using it to drive transparency and trust in sectors, finance and logistics. Then there's the emergence of AI-powered agents and automation, basically smart software that can make decisions or assist without any human input, basically, that's fully autonomous. African startups are leveraging this to improve customer service, think chatbots in local languages, and to optimize business operations. We also shouldn't overlook actually the Internet of Things, IoT, inexpensive sensors and devices are helping to monitor crops, manage energy usage, and even track wildlife conservation, be it for Africa. And while things like quantum computing, of the global outlook, Africa is still getting involved. I think there are also EU reports you can check on that to back these things. There are initiatives to build quantum research capacity on the continent, signaling that Africa wants to sit at the table, at the next frontier for developments. So from AI to blockchain to IoT, these technologies are increasingly interwoven with Africa's development and empowerment as well, boosting efficiency, opening new markets, and enabling homegrown solutions to long-standing challenges that we are all used to. The exciting part is how African entrepreneurs are adapting these innovations to local needs, whether it's mobile AI labs in Nigeria or blockchain-based land in Ghana. They are shaping a future where technology isn't imported wholesale, but grown and tailored right here in Africa. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, I would like to know what hurdles are slowing down the adoption of these innovations across Africa, and what major challenges does the continent face in this tech revolution?
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's true. Alongside the whole, hype excitement, we have some significant challenges and barriers to these innovations. Infrastructure is a big one. We need two things basically: reliable electricity and internet to leverage these technologies. And too many parts of Africa still lack them. Unfortunately. For context, roughly about 600 million people in the sub-Saharan Africa still have no access to electricity, and only about 37% of Africans were using internet in 2023. Some credible source out there to check this. So a huge portion of the population is offline due to patchworks or high cost of data broadband in the African continent. So these gaps make it hard to spread digital innovations early. So that's a big concern. Another challenge is also the policy and regulatory environments, very key. Many African countries are still developing frameworks for things like AI governance or fintech. Only a handful, maybe fewer than 10 countries or so, have published national AI strategies. In some places, regulations haven't caught up, to the pace of the tech. So the tech is going so fast, and regulations keep up with it. Even seen in Nigeria, for instance, with the SEC, trying to keep up with the blockchain innovations, and they're trying to get that, quite inclusive because they can recognize the impact, but policy must play a strategic role as well. And across the continent, laws often differ country by country. Regions have, what they look into and their interest, which complicates scaling a tech business, in a Pan-African outlook, basically. A startup might navigate one set of rules in Kenya, then face, a completely different regime in Nigeria. So this fragmentation can deter investment and innovation. Yeah.
So you've mentioned quite a number of challenges. Now let's talk about addressing these challenges. What actionable solutions or steps do you propose to ensure Africa can overcome these barriers and fully harness emerging technologies?
Okay. Basically, clearly, the good news is we're not helpless, right? There are concrete steps being taken, to tackle these issues. First, infrastructure, as I mentioned, we need massive investment in both power and connectivity. This means expanding the electricity grid, and exploring off-grid renewable energy for rural areas, tech hubs, and villages. On the connectivity front, the government and telecom companies, must, roll out affordable broadband. That's the thing. It's always increasing. I mean, you're seeing the recent tariff hikes, with the broadband. It's all weighing. Like, for instance, someone like me, per month, I have to spend 2 or 3 times what I, used to spend last year, basically, to just keep up with the innovation and the whole structures out there. So competition in the telecom sector should be encouraged, to drive down costs. We have seen some success stories, for example, in Morocco, when they push down aggressive on digital policies, cutting data costs and extending broadband to rural communities. And these communities now enjoy over 90% internet penetration, which is a very good thing and which fosters innovation. So that's a model others can emulate, through bold reforms and maybe public-private partnerships in infrastructure. Second, smarter policy frameworks. African governments are increasingly realizing the need to create an enabling environment. This includes developing national strategies for AI, blockchain, etc. Quantum, as mentioned, with input from industry and the academia. That's very key as well. A great sign is the African Union, level of doing things with startup acts coming together. Like, you see countries like Tunisia, Senegal, all, having this being implemented, providing tax breaks, funding, and regulatory sandboxes for tech startups. I mean, that's something you should really pursue. We also need to regulate the sandbox in fintech, and also because I think there's a recent one for the blockchain. There's the ARIP program by the SEC of Nigeria, with some of our products, even at Shinity, we're able to go through. So instead of, the previous pushbacks, you have the blockchain crypto stuff, you have much inclusive stuff for startups to come in and not to kill innovation, but to foster innovation and encourage them. Okay. Third, you have increasing funding to address the capital gap. A mix of local and international efforts, are needed. On one hand, more African governments could set up innovation funds or match investment for tech startups. We're also seeing growth in local venture capital and angel investor networks, which is also encouraging. International development organizations and corporate venture arms are stepping into, For instance, Google, Microsoft, and all the big tech guys, the tech giants, and others have tech accelerators and funding initiatives targeting African entrepreneurs, which is a very good thing. We also, or we should actually leverage public-private partnerships. I can't really overstress that. That's very key as well to finance big projects like national broadband or smart city infrastructure, those kind of things. Thinking ahead. And also blended finance models, combining donor funds, government money, and private investments can de-risk these projects as well. And fourth, as well, address the skill set gap through education and training. This is a huge thing, because there needs to be an overhaul, introducing coding, robotics, data science from high school onwards, not just at the university level. That's just from theory shifting to actual practice in the labor markets, right? There are already coding boot camps and tech hubs across Africa training thousands of youth. I mean, in Nigeria, we have our version of 3MTT, which the Minister of Digital Economy, Dr. Bosun Chani, was able to spearhead and push. It's a very big thing because you need workforce. You cannot talk innovation when there's no workforce to sustain it after innovation has been set on ground and it's a reality. Okay. In Nigeria, for example, there's a push to train. I think it's still the same 3 million, but I think there are different initiatives to train them like that and to make sure that we are sufficient and we have a workforce that is inclined towards innovation and sustenance of innovation as well. And lastly, building trust and inclusion. We have to include women actively, for instance, and rural communities in the tech ecosystem. That means supporting women in STEM programs, offering scholarships to childcare for female entrepreneurs at incubators, and also designing solutions in local languages so they can reach everyone. Public awareness campaigns, can demystify technologies, explain AI in simple terms, because some people might never get what you're trying to say with AI, but how does it impact them, right? So impact. So this is going to increase public acceptance because they say, oh, I don't know what you're saying, but this thing helps me. So I guess it makes sense. I guess we need it. And, as well, showing tangible benefits. When farmer sees a drone actually delivering medicine in his village, he will trust that technology because it's doing something. He doesn't need to understand it, but building trust and inclusion. So in essence, basically, these solutions involve a multi-pronged approach, invest in hard infrastructure, craft smart policies with regional coherence, unlocking finance for innovators, and to use tech. So African countries that focus on these enablers, infrastructure, skills, forward-looking regulation, are the ones where emerging tech will thrive. We often talk about leapfrogging in quotes in Africa. These are steps, how we can create the springboard for that leap. Thank you.
All right, so Africa's population is very young, and statistics say majority of Africans are under 25. How do you see the role of African youths in harnessing emerging technologies for economic advancement? You've mentioned a couple of things that should be done in order to, harness the importance of these or harness emerging technologies. But I would like to know what the youths, stand to do in harnessing emerging technologies proper for economic advancement.
Okay, very well. That's actually just finished mentioning the youth, the innovation to drive, to be trained, and you need a workforce to manage innovation when it's quite a big thing from its younger stages to its advanced stages, right? But the youth are absolutely at the heartbeat of Africa. You're right, basically. I mean, Africa is the youngest continent with over 60% of the population under age 25, right? That's hundreds of millions of young people who are growing up, in a digital native dreaming with ideas, energy. If we empower them, they will bring the drivers to economic growth. In fact, by projection, young Africans will join the workforce each year than the rest of the world combined. That's an astonishing, start over there. This youth bulge, can be a huge dividend for us if youth are equipped with the right skills and opportunities, as we have put out there. We're already seeing young Africans, at the forefront of tech innovation. I mean, this is very consistent across the continent. Many of the successful startups, as you might know them from, Paystack, Flutterwave, these are from, young people. I mean, they built e-commerce to e-health ventures, funded and led by quick to see problems in their communities and apply technology in creative ways to solve them. For example, young entrepreneurs have built apps to help farmers get better crop prices or platforms for students to access online learning as well. The rise of the tech hubs and innovation centers in cities like Lagos, Nairobi, Accra, is largely filled by youth, basically. It's youth. These hubs are filled with like 20-somethings, codings, designing and launching startups. Youth are more adaptable to new technologies, to these emerging technologies. They pick up the skills in AI, blockchain, or coding through boot camps or self-learning, right, and run with it, creating solutions older, generations might not even have imagined, basically. The youth also bring a certain entrepreneurial drive to these things and openness, to risks that is crucial in the tech space. Culturally, we see a shift. Instead of only seeking traditional jobs, many young Africans want to be founders and creators. They're forming vibrant communities, think dev groups, robotics clubs, and all of that support each other in learning new tech. One good example is the Pan-African Robotics Competition, where teams from different countries, I think, came to build robots. You have kids in secondary school already working with AI and IoT, the Internet of Things, gearing up to solve real-world problems like recycling or agro-automation. This passion and early exposure will translate into an innovative workforce. That's what you'll be seeing. But however, to fully harness these things, education and mentorship are key. Okay, we need to make sure our young people have access to quality training in emerging tech. When they do, they excel. We have seen African students win global hackathons and AI context. At the Trinity, we had the same kind of thing happening 2 years ago at the Algorand Buildable Hackathon. I mean, we had a product called Orally out there in the blockchain space, and it won the best global project ever with all the recognitions. It's also, but you see, this was actually powered by education and mentorship too as well. It's also important to involve youth in policy making conversations about tech, because they have a stake in the future. That's really being shaped for them. Some countries now have the youth reps or advisory groups feeding into national tech strategies, which is fantastic. Youth are also driving the digital economy as the largest consumer group. Their quick adoption of new services, mobile banking, ride-hailing apps, the Ubers, the InDrives, the Bolts, and all of that out there, or social media, for business, creates, and they also create markets for those innovations, to try. And one often, probably all the generations how to use tech. How many have you seen young persons set up a smartphone for their parent or show a community elder how to use WhatsApp? I mean, this happens almost all the time. The grassroots spread of digital literacy is largely youth-led. That's, I think, the conclusion on that context. So in terms of economic advancement, if we can, support our youth with financing incubators, they'll create companies that generate jobs. That's the point, job drivers. Africa's unemployment challenges can be mitigated by this young business. Also, as they are embracing emerging tech, they position Africa to leapfrog. So that leapfrog, that's what this is about. For instance, the cohort of young AI developers in Nairobi could build an AI solution that improves healthcare for millions. So I see the role of youth basically as innovators and enablers of tech adoption. They are the developers, they're the startup sales, they are digital freelancers. Those roles to drive economic growth, basically. And they also, they are also the ones who ensure technology solutions are culturally relevant, because sometimes this tech that we see out there have bias in them, right? So when we bring in some tech like AI, you need to look at context, you need to look at bias that was factored in when they were being built out there, by the Westerners, and right, they're building it for themselves. So when it comes to inclusion and cultural inclusion, these are the things we need to look into. So our job is to continue empowering the youth through education, mentorship, through giving them a platform, a voice. With the right support, Africa's youth can transform the continent. Using tech as their tool, absolutely. So their potential is boundless. And when matched with opportunity, and yeah, basically we're already witnessing the first parts of transformation in real time. Yeah, so yes.
Now let's turn the spotlight on Ashiniti Synergy Limited for a moment. What is Ashiniti's strategic approach in this emerging tech landscape, and especially regarding software development, policy advocacy, and R&D? And how does your company drive social and economic impact in African communities through these avenues?
Okay, very well. So at Ashiniti Synergy, our mission is to blend innovation with impact. Okay, by software tech consulting firms specializing in cutting-edge tech, notably blockchain, AI, and now delving into quantum computing, which is quite yonder, but we see that as relevant. But we marry, this technical framework with, the big picture or the goal of socio-economic, development. Our strategy is built on three pillars. We shorthand as visibility, impact, and relevance as well. But to break these things down, I think let me go into context of what we really do. I mean, for software development. That's our core service, building tailored tech solutions. We develop everything from web and mobile applications. For example, we have built blockchain-based applications, as I mentioned, and also in places like the creative sectors for the creatives like the music industry, also some software as well in the supply chains and AI-driven analytic tools for businesses, okay? We also emphasize an agile approach to what we do, basically transparent development processes with our clients. We also help transfer knowledge and skills, as we've said. Essentially, we don't just deliver a piece of software and disappear, no, we ensure teams, we work with, understand, and can maintain the technology. So that's why I said knowledge gap is being filled in by us. So this capacity building aspect means that impact is sustainable, it's very sustainable. Also, we have our R&D. Ashinity places a strong bet on R&D to stay ahead of the curve. We know that to be relevant, especially in the fast-moving world of AI, quantum tech, blockchain, you need to keep learning and innovating. That never stops, and it gets very sporadic, it gets very exponential. So we invest in the continuous exploration of emerging technologies. Practically, this means we have dedicated teams and collaborations. We do working on experimental projects, AI prototyping models and all of this to find what we can really deliver out there with impact. We also run internal innovation challenges, encouraging our staff to propose and develop new ideas, because that's very key. Letting people to speak and to make sure it's inclusive. The R&D is not done in isolation, whereby it's just a star person or a star dev. We come together, so internally as well to make these things to work. So one outcome of our R&D focus has been like the digital identity solution thing. We're piloting these cases using the blockchain, to help on the deserved people or unbanked people, as said, to establish financial identity. The concept came out of a hackathon by the developers we had. So we also have policy advocacy, right? This might sound unusual for a tech company, but we believe in shaping an environment where tech can thrive. So we try to engage with government bodies, industry groups, international organizations, these policy makers as it to be. And for instance, we had the UNDP roundtable in the US House in Abuja that happened this month. Discussing public-private partnerships for digital, the development, because these forums are very essential. Very, very essential to see that tech can thrive. Because locally we contribute to policy by advising on frameworks. So what kind of policy framework will make emerging tech, right, have its set impact or expected impact, because everything needs to come together. You can have everything that we have said so good, but if policy is not in place, right, you can have a lot of issues with tech thriving. I mean, you can cite some examples of the internet, some techs that, I think like in Lagos, there was this app called Go-Kada or something, and when the policy came and then banned the, machine or something, that setup was like almost obsolete. So you see why it's very essential to have a framework that, has policy in it, and tech people should be involved in it. So and we also have the social impact and community engagement. We try driving social and economic impact. It's not just a slogan for us. So for instance, how many jobs did a platform we build create, for the youth have, for instance? So we track those metrics. So we like to come in there to bring our leadership and focus to help, platforms to grow. So as I said, it's not just only about tech, but we try to make a way for these things to, have visibility, relevance, and also impact. So we don't just do it internally, but with our clients and with people as well that we work with. So thank you.
So finally, looking ahead, what are the most critical steps needed now to ensure these emerging technologies actually deliver a lasting positive impact on Africa's long-term development?
Yeah, to wrap up, I'd say, a few critical high-level steps. Think of them as pillars for Africa's digital future. If we get this right, we create, quite a strong foundation for everything else to succeed. One, you have to invest in core infrastructure and access, which you mentioned. This is step 0. That means without power and connectivity, you're not doing anything, you're not going anywhere. We have to be very clear. That must dramatically increase investment in electricity, especially sustainable energy and internet. That goes almost without much saying. Of course, so this includes Wi-Fi, reaching, the unreachable places like the rural communities, last mile broadband, all of these things, they need to be addressed. We should really aim for universal internet access in the coming decades. It's quite ambitious, but it's very essential. So every African child should be able to get online at a public spot or something. Every business should have the option of reliable power and data as well. Government with support from development partners and leveraging public-private partnerships. Those are very essential. Building human capital at scale as well, because we are a population of like how many people, like in Nigeria, for instance, over 250 million or something. So this ties into our last discussion, basically massively upskilling the population for the digital age. Okay, we have, as I said, the policy framework to summarize that. The future governance is critical. Africa policymakers need to continue being proactive in crafting and updating regulations. They encourage innovation while safeguarding the public. So this is also very essential. We have, as I said, the public-private partnerships and the collaborations that need to take place. Sometimes within government, private sector, academia, civil society. That's what we call the responsible innovation framework. That should really be set up and be a very proactive thing we pursue. And of course, focus on inclusion and sustainability. So ensure that the tech is transforming, is having transformation that is people-centered and sustainable in the long term. So that means constantly checking, are there any marginalized groups, inclusive growth, women, tech, rural, affordable. We need to look at this broadly. We have also secure and, ethical use. Definitely you have emerging tech like AI. And as I mentioned, you need to look at these things with cybersecurity. You just need to make sure that these things have ethical use with them, because people will try to use them for other negative trends and, negative things. So we need to bring in ethics and also sponsor these things and spearhead them and make sure that we keep within those bounds, because every emerging tech, while it has its great, excitement with it, it has the other side. So we need to advocate very well with ethics, as well. So, yeah, thank you.
That's all we can take on the interview segment. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thank you so much, Dorcas. Thank you.
We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll bring you tech tips. Do stay with us. Today on Tech Tips, we'll be giving you tips for leveraging emerging technologies for inclusive growth. Step 1. Design with accessibility in mind. Ensure your tech solutions are usable by people with varying levels of literacy, disabilities, and digital exposure. Use local languages, voice interfaces, and intuitive design. Step 2. Leverage mobile-first solutions. In many emerging markets, mobile phones are the primary digital access points. Build apps, websites, and services optimized for low bandwidth, feature phones, and offline use. Step 3. Use AI for social impact. Deploy AI-powered tools for solving real-world problems, such as chatbots for healthcare information, machine learning for agriculture forecasting, or AI tutors for personalized learning. Step 4. Integrate blockchain for transparency and inclusion. Use blockchain to create transparent systems in land ownership, voting, or public funding. In fintech, leverage decentralized platforms to offer access to microloans, savings, or identity verification. And finally, step 5, prioritize data privacy and ethical AI. When serving underserved or vulnerable populations, collect only essential data, ensure consent, and use open source ethical AI frameworks to avoid bias. And that's a wrap on the program today. Do also follow us across all our social media platforms for more programs, news, and documentaries. My name is Dorcas Yakubu. See you again next week.